Welcome back to another video. Today I'm talking about gentleman's knives. I'm going to give you my top picks for the best gentleman's knives available. When I think about gentleman's knives, I think a very elegant, very classy, clean looking minimalist knife. And they don't necessarily have to have the best materials available. They're not really designed for that. They're not hard use knives. And you're going to see that with some of my picks here. As long as they look classy, non-threatening, and still get the job done and be functional, that's what I consider a gentleman's knife. So I got dressed up for this video, trying to class this joint up a little bit. Let's talk gentleman's knives. So my pick for the 10th best gentleman's knife is the Rake P865. The Rake P865 has that classy gentleman's knife look that I'm always looking for. Very long and slim, and it has those really nice clean lines, a 3.5-inch Wharncliffe blade. And this blade has 14C28N steel, but that goes right back to what I was saying about the materials not having to be so high-end in a gentleman's knife. Very clean looking G10 handles and deep carry pocket clip. Normally I wouldn't really think of a Wharncliffe blade when I'm thinking gentleman's knife, but it sort of works here, even though a Wharncliffe blade might be considered too aggressive for a gentleman's knife. But I don't think so. I think this looks great, and at 45 bucks, this is a solid choice for a gentleman's knife. And now my pick for the 9th best gentleman's knife is the Kershaw AM3. This Kershaw AM3 is the least expensive gentleman's knife in my top 10. But that's taking nothing away from this knife at all. It has a 3-inch 8CR13 MOV spear point blade with a hollow grind and a very clean design on these contoured black G10 handles. And I love the red accents on that black deep carry pocket clip and those red barrel spacers right there. Now the AM3 is an assisted rear flipper. So you can see the flipper tab right there, and it does deploy very nicely. But if you're carrying a gentleman's knife, you might be in an atmosphere that could consider deploying your knife with the rear flipper tab aggressive. But the nice thing about the AM3 is it also has thumb studs, but because this is an assisted knife, you'll still get that same effect. So it does have enough material on the top of the blade here to open it like a gentleman. Now my pick for number 8 would have ranked a little bit higher if it was an actual gentleman's knife, but it's more of a gentleman's multi-tool. This is the Victorinox Nail Clip 580. Now guys, I had to put the Victorinox Nail Clip 580 in this list because yes, it technically does have a small blade here, but it also features 8 functions in one, and you're gonna see why I included it in this list. So I already showed you this razor sharp short blade, but right next to it is a nail file and a nail cleaner. On the other side here, there's some small scissors. Now I've used this blade and these scissors multiple times to cut threads off of my shirt or whatever I might need it for. Now let me show you some of the other tools. Right here, you have some tweezers. On the other side, there's a toothpick. And then the main feature of the nail clip, of course, you have some very nice nail clippers right there. In fact, these nail clippers work so well, they're almost better than the nail clippers that I have in my bathroom. So you can see why I had to include this in my top 10 gentleman's knife video. It just folds away so nicely, and it just looks so classy, especially in white. And at only 36 bucks, this really should be in everyone's collection. And now my pick for the 7th best gentleman's knife is another Kershaw. It's the Kershaw Leek. One of my favorite things about the Kershaw Leek is how these stainless steel handles look when it's folded up like this. But when it's deployed, you'll see a 3-inch 14C28N modified drop point. And yes, the Leek is also an assisted rear flipper, but it also has those thumb studs right there and enough room to open it like a gentleman. Now my only gripe with the Leek here is it doesn't have a deep carry pocket clip. Because when I'm talking gentleman's knives, I really want to have a deep carry pocket clip. I want that knife to be as hidden as possible. But if your venue isn't so strict about having a knife on you, you can see just how much that sticks out over your pockets. But that's really my only negative of the Kershaw Leek. At 60 bucks, I think this is a solid choice for a gentleman's knife. And now my pick for the 6th best gentleman's knife is the Kaiser Fire Ant. And this is one of the few knives in this top 10 list that has a little bit higher end materials than the rest. It has super clean titanium handles there, a 2.65-inch S35 VN Wharncliffe blade. And I know I said I don't really consider a Wharncliffe blade part of a gentleman's knife, and I keep including Wharncliffe blades in this list, but just look at how that blade looks on the Fire Ant. Those clean lines, it just works here. And going back to these clean looking titanium handles, flat design, and it has these bronze accents right on the spine and on the thumb studs. It looks great. It has a frame lock, and being a Kaiser, it has fantastic action. Now the pocket clip here isn't quite deep carry, as you can see right there. That's my only negative of the Fire Ant. And with these higher end materials, it's a little bit pricier at 160 bucks. And now we're into the top 5 here. So my pick for number 5 is the Best Tech Knives, Best Techman Dundee. Now the Best Techman Dundee might be a little bit larger than all of the other knives here in this top 10 list, but it still maintains that very classy shape for a gentleman's knife. It has a 3.5-inch D2 standard blade with a flat grind and contoured micarta scales here. When folded up, it's 4.62 inches long. So like I said, it's a little bit larger than the other gentleman's knives here I have in this top 10 list, but it's perfectly fine. It's still classy AF. It's a rear flipper, but you can see those milled grooves right there near the spine of the blade where you can still grab a hold of it and open it like a gentleman. And extremely close to being a deep carry pocket clip right there. It's a recessed deep carry pocket clip. The only piece that's going to be sticking out is right there. And the Best Techman Dundee is ambidextrous thanks to its liner lock right there and its reversible deep carry pocket clip. And at only 45 bucks, you can see why I put the Best Techman Dundee in the 5th spot. Now we're in the top 4, and choosing these 4 was extremely difficult except for my number 1. So the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place were extremely difficult to determine, but for my number 4 pick, I'm putting the Boker Plus Kaizen. And now we're really gonna start getting into that clean, elegant, minimalist design that I was talking about earlier. The Kaizen here has a phenomenal Japanese-inspired, non-threatening, minimal design. And check out that super slim 3.11-inch S35 VN black straight back blade. And I love the design here around the pivot. It is very different. And the flipper tab is darn near invisible. If I get in real close, you can barely see that flipper tab. There's a recessed deep carry pocket clip, and the only part that's gonna be sticking out over your pockets is that little attachment point right there on the top. And the action here, even with that almost invisible flipper tab, is fantastic. The only problem is when the blade is seated, there's nowhere to grab it to open it like a gentleman. You have to deploy it with the rear flipper tab. But the Kaizen is so non-threatening, I don't think you're gonna have a problem deploying this knife at all. Now at 70 bucks, the price is on the lower end of the other knives here on this list. So at that price, this is a phenomenal pick for a gentleman's knife. And for my number 3 pick, it's another Boker and one of my favorite gentleman's knives of all time. It's the Boker LRF. The Boker LRF is another Japanese-inspired design here, but this is just super classy when it's deployed. I love everything about the LRF, that 3-inch VG10 drop point blade with the hollow grind. And these Coco Bolo scales here are just super classy on this knife. It comes with a braided leather lanyard right here on the tail. It has a recessed deep carry pocket clip that, much like the Kaizen here, only the attachment point sticks out over the top. And I love this design right here at the pivot. Right there is the flipper tab, but you can see they tried to mimic that design on the other side, and deploying this, just the action is fantastic. And when the LRF is closed up, you can see just how classy this knife really looks. This one's a little bit pricier than the others at 94 bucks, but once again, I think you're getting your money's worth here. Now, my number 2 pick might be a little bit controversial because a lot of you guys might not consider this a gentleman's knife, but I do. It's the notorious EDC Kingpin. And at 290 bucks, it's the most expensive knife in this list. But with these materials, you're gonna see why. That's a 2.91-inch M390 drop point harpoon blade hybrid. Black micarta scales on titanium handles, and that handle sort of looks like a gun stock. So in your hand, it feels fantastic. And with the blade deployed, you can see just how beautiful the Kingpin is with those clean lines. This screams gentleman's knife to me. And being a slip joint, you have no other choice but to open this like a gentleman. The Kingpin doesn't come with a pocket clip, but it comes with this very classy looking leather slip. Just stick it in there, put it in your pocket, nothing exposed. Very nice. And of all the knives on this table, I think the Kingpin might be the most beautiful. I just love the looks of this knife. So what did I choose as my number 1 choice for a gentleman's knife? And this one was super easy. In fact, when I think gentleman's knives, this is the knife that I think of every single time. It's the CRKT CEO. In my opinion, the CEO is the king of the hill when talking about gentleman's knives. Now, the version that I have right here is the Richard Rogers 7096 CEO. It has a 3.1-inch 8CR13 MOV clip point blade. And when it's deployed, you can see it just has those nice, clean, slim, classy lines that I'm looking for in a gentleman's knife. The CRKT has a true deep carry pocket clip. As you can see, nothing's gonna be sticking out over your pockets. These contoured scales are made of GRN, but you can see it sort of looks like carbon fiber. I think it looks super classy. And the only way to deploy the CEO is with this thumb stud right here, and it has this IKBS ball bearing pivot system that deploys very fast. It almost feels assisted, but there are no springs in this knife at all. And one of my favorite things about the CRKT CEO is it's sort of a covert knife. It poses as a pen. So of course I chose to wear a dress shirt without a shirt pocket, so I can't really demonstrate that for you. But another thing that I really like about the CEO is that it's tipped down. Now normally I hate tip down knives, but the CEO is designed to be put in your shirt pocket to look like a pen, and you just lift it straight up, and when you lift it straight up, your thumb is already right there on the thumb stud to be deployed. And it's the only tip down knife in my top 10 because yes, it is designed to be worn in your shirt pocket. The CRKT CEO has it all. Clean lines, extremely minimalistic, very elegant, very classy, and non-threatening. It ticks every single box. On top of that, this version that I have right here is only 45 bucks. So in my opinion, putting the CRKT CEO at number 1 was a no-brainer. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. What do you think of my top 10 picks for the best gentleman's knives? And do you agree with my number 1 pick here, the CRKT CEO? If you don't agree, let me know what your picks are down below in my description box. But if you did enjoy this video, please give me that thumbs up. Please subscribe. See, this is normally the time where I yell and go, but we're keeping it classy today. You're excused.